Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real pleasure, it's a real honor to, well, firstly have all of you with us today, and above all, to have Hakan Fidan, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Türkiye, an extremely important country in Europe, in the world, in our broader region, the Middle East, Eurasia. Türkiye really is, as we all know, really at the heart of many of the crises surrounding us, whether we're talking about Ukraine, whether we're talking about Gaza, whether we're talking about Iran, Gulf security, the Caucasus, Armenia, Azerbaijan. I mean, there's a lot on the plate there, and Türkiye really is at the heart and the nexus of all of this. So I think really to start us off, Minister Fidan, it would be wonderful really to get your sense of the state of the world and your sense of Turkey's role in that world, and what is it that you are doing in order to make it a tiny bit better. So again, very warm welcome. I'm actually quite, not only honored, but I'm actually quite emotional because as many of you know, Türkiye is my first research love. And as we all know, the first love never dies. So it's wonderful to be with you today. Thank you very much, Minister Fidan. Please.
Well, Natalie, thank you very much for this wonderful introduction. I am very happy to be here today, myself and with my delegation. And I appreciate the warm hospitality for our Italian hosts here, and particularly Director Tocci, who is a long-standing friend of Türkiye. What is more ancient is our modern diplomatic relations. They date back almost 170 years. Yet our story goes back much further. It flows through the currents of the Mediterranean, from the Italian peninsula to Anatolia. 1,000 years ago, the Latins began calling our land Türkiye, a name that placed Türkiye at the heart of Europe's collective memory and identity. Among the many stories that bind us, one stands out in particular. It's a funny story. It's the journey of coffee. It is said that coffee first traveled from the Ottoman lands to Europe through the great city of Venice. The world's first coffee house was opened in Istanbul as early as the 16th century, although this is debatable, but our people are insisting that this is the correct date. Soon after, Venetian merchants carried this new taste westward. By 1645, Europe's first coffee house was welcoming its guests in Venice. And today, whether it is Turkish coffee brewed with care in a traditional jezve, or Italian espresso crafted with precision, the essence is the same. In many ways, coffee is a metaphor for our relationship, a blend of rich traditions and a common heritage that has grown stronger over time. Yet, our interaction strategies far deeper into shared Mediterranean heritage of our peoples. And today, we are not only neighbors across Mediterranean, but also allies in NATO, partners in G20, and providers of stability across the Mediterranean and Africa. Turkey's partnership with Italy spreads like the wings of an eagle across the Mediterranean and North Africa. It is not an alliance of convenience. It is a strategic imperative born of common history, common geography, and common future. It provides security, stability, and prosperity on both shores of our shared sea. At a time of shifting global landscape, cooperation between Turkey and Italy has never been more vital. We are two actors with the capacity to shape developments in our region and beyond. We are Mediterranean frontline states whose security hinges on stability from Maghreb to Levant. Both countries focus on coordinated crisis management to mitigate energy shocks, food insecurity, and irregular flows. Since yesterday, I've been engaging in fruitful discussions with my Italian counterparts and friends. In recent years, our partnership has entered an era of renewed momentum. In a multipolar world with intensified great power rivalry, our alignment is an absolute necessity. Besides the geopolitical changes that require closer cooperation between our countries, leadership too makes all difference. The personal rapport and mutual respect between President Erdogan and Prime Minister Meloni not only created a climate of confidence, but also a strategic direction. High-level exchanges reflect this new energy. Prime Minister Meloni's visit to Istanbul on the 1st of August for the Türkiye, Italy, Libya Trilateral Summit marked an important milestone. Earlier this year, we held our fourth intergovernmental summit in Rome, where 11 agreements were signed and ambitious targets were set. Among them, a new midterm trade volume target of $40 billion US. Italy is already among our leading economic and trade partners, but we see much greater potential. There are vast opportunities to deepen our cooperation in defense industry, trade and investment, energy security, and energy corridors, climate change, science and technology, and of course, connectivity and trade routes. Our geographic proximity fuels seamless trade and transport links across the Adriatic-Aegean axis. As gateways between Europe, Asia, and Africa, we co-develop strategic connectivity corridors and supply chain networks. Defense industry in particular is a natural area of strength. Over the years, our companies have collaborated on procurement, joint design, and production. Recently, two landmark developments have underlined the depth of this partnership: the Baykar-Leonardo cooperation and the purchase of Piaggio Aerospace. Joint efforts in energy diversification also carry great importance. From TANAP and TAP pipelines to LNG flexibility to Eastern Mediterranean interconnectors, our cooperation reinforces European energy security. These are strategic investments in our collective future. Dear friends, Turkey is NATO's second largest military power, and Italy brings unmatched expertise. We are deepening NATO interoperability via joint exercises while expanding counterterrorism cooperation, including intelligence sharing. Together, our capabilities make a formidable contribution to European security. Fight against organized crime also features prominently in our agenda. Our law enforcement agencies remain aligned against common threats. But security today goes beyond traditional defense and law enforcement. Irregular migration has become one of the greatest challenges in the Mediterranean. Turkey and Italy have first-hand experience in managing irregular migration routes. And for that, effective multilateral coordination is indispensable. Ultimately, Turkey and Italy agree that addressing migration requires stability and development in the source regions. This is why we also partner on humanitarian response, prioritizing dignity and solidarity. Our cooperation must reach further into Sahel and the Horn of Africa. And beyond politics and security, there is culture, there is tourism between us. There are millions of human connections that tie Turks and Italians together. These people-to-people interactions build mutual understanding and reinforce the social bonds that support our strategic alliance. When we look at the regional outlook and the cooperation between Italy and Turkey, dear friends, the wider Mediterranean, including North Africa, remain at the heart of our cooperation. We believe that the destinies of Africa and the Mediterranean are inseparable. Guided by a common vision of President Erdogan and Prime Minister Meloni, we can further extend our joint capacity towards Africa, a continent that stands at the heart of the 21st century. Our partnership in Africa rests on three principles: respect for sovereignty, alignment with Africa's own development agenda, a mutually beneficial spirit that seeks empowerment of regional ownership. As strategic partners, we are both ready to contribute to Africa's prosperity, from Senegal, Sahel to Horn of Africa, from the Gulf of Guinea to the Indian Ocean. Turning to the European dimension that we have discussed, we greatly value Italy's consistent support for our EU membership. It is not the best-kept secret that the EU still struggles to act together in the realm of foreign and security policy. Let's face it, in trade, Europe is united, yet in strategy, it remains divided and narrow-minded. That gap invites risks and rivals. Turkey's inclusion is key to closing that gap. The EU must recognize that its ambition for strategic autonomy will remain incomplete without Türkiye. Without Turkish contributions, how can Europe attain the strategic depth it needs to match its economic weight? Moving forward, we would like to see a new beginning. We need a vision that can redefine the strategic horizon of EU-Türkiye relations. Italy could pioneer that renewal. Italy has charted an independent strategic course over the past few years. These policies resonate with Turkey's vision for a stronger Mediterranean. In a Europe often dominated by inertia and indecision, Italy's voice stands out as one of common sense, reason, and strategic wisdom. Let me put it plainly. Some of our friends in the EU feel at ease with our continued absence. But this comes at a cost, a loss of strategic depth. We therefore look forward to a more direct and vocal Italian support for our accession process. I say this quite often. The geopolitical storms that face our continent today might have been well prevented if Turkey had a seat at the EU table. Dear friends, we cannot speak about global challenges without addressing the elephant in the room, which is the legitimacy crisis affecting the United Nations Security Council. It is imperative to establish trust in the multilateral system. Both Turkey and Italy have upheld rules-based order supporting UN-led processes in Libya and Syria. At the G20, we coordinate our agenda on equitable climate finance, sustainable infrastructure, debt relief, and secure digital trade rules. That is also why Turkey and Italy are co-leading a consensus-building initiative on Security Council reform. We are proud to be core members of the Uniting for Consensus coalition. We advocate for a more representative and effective Security Council. Dear friends, reform is not an act of defiance. It is an act of maintenance to save and enhance the system. We will once again emphasize this urgency in the upcoming high-level week of UNGA. And Gaza. Obviously, Gaza will be high on our agenda. Gaza is the real test for the international community to distinguish right from wrong. Recognizing the reality in Gaza and exposing Israel's crimes against humanity are the first step towards a fairer world. No need to mince our words. Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. We are rallying all countries of conscience to the side of humanity. In this regard, vocal support of Italy will be more crucial than ever. As the saying goes, all that is essential for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. We know that Italy is a crucial partner in order to prevent the triumph of that evil. We also share a responsibility for peace and security across the wider region. Our foreign policy has long become proactive on several fronts. This also guides our policy towards Ukraine. We continue to emphasize that the only viable path to ending the conflict between Ukraine and Russia is through diplomacy. Istanbul talks stands as a testament to this approach. As we look ahead Turkey remains dedicated to facilitating a diplomatic solution. We are prepared to assess the implementation of an agreement that has the mutual consent of the parties. The stabilization of Syria is also fundamental to the security and peace of Europe. We both support a Syria that is united, sovereign, and who maintains constructive relations with its neighbors. Achieving this will require critical steps: an end to sanctions that disproportionately harm the people of Syria, the reconstruction of devastated cities, enabling and dignified return of millions of displaced Syrians, ensuring the elimination of all terrorist elements. Dear colleagues, at a time of uncertainty, Turkey and Italy stand as anchors of stability in the Euro-Mediterranean. Together, our voices can ensure that our common interests are at the forefront and center. Turkey and Italy should proactively lead together, not least to provide security and stability across the Mediterranean and North Africa, to pioneer innovating solutions to irregular migration, to invest in Africa's rise, and to reform the international system. I mean this not only at the level of governments, but at also civil society and think tanks such as yours and their Turkish counterparts. Geography gave us proximity, but it is our common purpose that gives us strategic partnership. Together, we can turn the Mediterranean into a basin of stability, safety, and shared responsibility. Historically, the Mediterranean Sea has linked us, and today, once again, it calls on us to lead together. Grazie mille. Thank you.
Teşekkür ederim. Dear Minister Fidan, dear Hakan, you have touched on so many themes, and there are 10,000 that I would like to delve into, but I'll just pick 6. And let me begin with the first one. Once upon a time, not too long ago, if we thought about the Middle East, we used to think of Iran as being the main revisionist player. Probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the region now broadly looks at Israel as the main revisionist player in the Middle East. Now, that revisionism, of course, up until really only a few hours ago, touched on stateless peoples, the Palestinians, on weak states, Libya, on adversaries, Syria, on, if we think about the United States and to an extent Europe, even more than adversaries, Iran. Now, all of a sudden, that revisionism also touches the Gulf. And in particular, of course, I'm referring here to the attacks in Qatar. I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit and give us a sense of not only how you and Türkiye views this, but perhaps more specifically, what are the implications of this in terms of Türkiye's relations with the Gulf countries in Gulf security?
Well, thank you, Natalie. I think being true intellectual, the answers to questions actually, is already there. That you also talk about the answers. As you rightly put out, the real problem in the region is at the moment the Israeli expansion. For a long time, Israel has positioned itself or try to justify its regional policies through a security prism, saying that Israel's security is important. I think it has become very clear that it's not about the security that Israelis are after. They are after more land. If they had been after security, I think the two-state solution would have been the best solution for everybody, and it could have been implemented by now. I think since the closing of the Oslo Agreement in 1993, we've been witnessing or watching a big show that actually there has been an illusion created by Israel getting the world population an opening, believing that they are really after two-state solution. But in fact, it has become clear that in the long run, they've been after more land, and they've never given up from that objective. They only have different time frames to reach that objectives. I think it is no good for the Israelis, not for the region, and not definitely for the Palestinian people. And it is our position right from the beginning, let's get the international community really behind 1967 borders, two-state solution, to have safety and security for Israel and for Palestine as well, and dignity. And I think we have a unique moment in terms of seeing all the Arab and Muslim countries, actually almost all of them are ready to accept two-state solution. And that will give Israel the infinite security guarantee. But it is, becoming clear, as I said, the Israel is not after security, it's after more land. And we see more occupation on other countries, more aggression. And I think the strategic concept of Israel is based on one very dangerous proposition, which is to keep the surrounding governments in chaos at worst or weak at best. So this is obviously a big invitation to all the chaos and instability in our region. This is our assessment. So how to really address this issue? I think we need to first have a good discussion with the United States and some European capitals. I think this is what has been happening. And now, even today, many staunch supporters of Israel, they feel to put a distance between themselves and Israel, because it's almost impossible for a lot of countries to really carry this burden, because every international law and humanitarian law has been violated, and active genocide is taking place, and it is happening under broad daylight, and then nobody is doing nothing. And although international community has come together several times at UNGA, United States General Assembly, United Nations General Assembly, and they have voted for two-state solution and recognition of Palestinian state, but because of some countries, it could have not been materialized, and this is the essence of the crisis in the international system that we are facing today. We have for a long time championed for democracy, but almost 95% or 98% of world population coming together through their representatives at UN, they are voting for something, but 1%, less than 1% says no. So how can we advance the goals of democracy if we have such a picture at international domain? So coming back to your question, I think in the region, in the Gulf especially, I think there is a big shift in defining their security objectives. Yeah. And now it has become very clear that the United States cannot even provide security and when it comes to Israel, because Israeli policies have been exempted from US general objectives, and this actually gives a big fear to Gulf countries. And we saw the reaction of the leaders of the Gulf countries right after the bombing of Doha by the Israel. I think it shouldn't be a surprise to see a new discussion is taking place in the Gulf in terms of how to redefine regional security and how to redefine regional security cooperation and the objectives, and how to relate the regional security into wider geostrategic security and the partners.
And moving up, remaining in the same region and moving on to Iran, of course, now there is a very fragile ceasefire, but it is not at all clear that that ceasefire is going to stabilize, also because Washington doesn't seem to be particularly interested and pushing for a resumption of diplomacy in a very active way. Of course, Iran on its side is not necessarily being the most constructive either. Europeans have and risk shooting themselves, in my humble opinion, in the foot by moving towards the snapback of sanctions. And so here we are in a situation in which perhaps war could re-erupt. What's your assessment in terms of the state of the ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and of course with the United States as well? And how worried are you that war could actually resume?
I think we should be very much worried about that, because based on all the analyses and assessments that we are going through, well, there is still this possibility, unfortunately, which we don't want to see, obviously. But the first round of the war, the 12 days it lasted, it was really a big opening for our region and beyond the region. And I think the international community came to realize that such a war will really be limited only in our region. It will have effect beyond our region. We are already having a large-scale war between Ukraine and Russia in the middle of Europe. So another war coming from the east and coupling will be having a devastating effect. So therefore, what we did as Turkey, we did our best together with some other allies to stop the war from further escalating. But as you ask, I mean, the risk is there, the danger is there. So if there is no permanent solution or attempt to solve this problem with a serious intent and effort, we will carry the risk of seeing another renewed war, unfortunately. But our efforts, our work, and our praise not to see it again. So.
And moving on to Syria. I mean, Syria is, of course, a country where you have also a very deep and long history, both in your previous capacity and in the current one. And here we are in a situation in which, finally, change did take place. And I think Türkiye played no small role in it. I'm wondering, I guess a sort of twofold question here. I mean, one element of it is, what is your assessment of how Syria is doing? I often feel that we don't talk about and the progress that Syria is making, or the lack of progress that Syria is making, enough. I think it should be far more in the spotlight. But then, coming back to the security dimension, there is a Türkiye-Israel question here, right? In the sense that one thing is to dislike what Israel does in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Iran and whatnot. And one thing is, for Türkiye, Israel attacking Syria, and attacking Syria really on a rather regular basis. Is there a threat of a direct clash between Türkiye and Israel on and over Syria?
Well, after the 8th of December last year, we've seen a new era in Syria, And now I think what was very good about what happened, I mean, the regional countries and international community almost, they've come together and they align a similar position in terms of how to deal with the new administration or government in Syria. And so our objectives were very much clear. You know, after the 8th of December, when new administration came to power in Damascus, as countries of the region, we came together and we identified certain objectives, said, look, I mean, what do we want to see from a government in Damascus as the countries of region? So let's decide on this and communicate with them, see how they respond, and then we can move on. So it was, you know, a very basic and clear what we really wanted from a government in Damascus. You know, the countries in the Gulf, like Jordan, Iraq, us, Saudi, Qataris, Emiratis, we came together, said we don't want to see new government is involved in terrorism, no support for terrorism, no mistreatment of minorities, and no threat to neighboring countries. Just they should mind their own business because they have a lot of problems economically and otherwise. So I think when we have communicated all these parameters with Damascus, I think they responded quite well. And up until now, I think international community and regional countries are, you know, more or less content with what they are seeing in Damascus. But at the same time, we recognize the fact that there is a lot to be done because the country is fragmented, the infrastructure has collapsed, institutional capacity is quite low in many areas. So we need to do our best to assist the Syrian government to actually put itself together to deliver basic services to its people, including safety and security. I think we can be very much ambitious as long as there is no violation of the cardinal rules. As I said, no threat to neighboring countries, no terrorism. The rest can be actually within the coordination of neighboring countries, international community, including EU and United States. They all played very constructive roles, to be honest. And this is an unprecedented thing for our region. And everything was going on the right direction, although it was slow. But with the intervention of Israel, things have changed. And this is, I think, the most destroying, the risk for Syrian future. So therefore, international community and regional countries, they have to stick to their original commitments, which is stability and unity and prosperity in Syria. Otherwise, millions of Syrian refugees will continue to stay where they are. If not, we get more. And Syria can become a source of instability. What we had started all together as international community, together with regional countries, to really cure the problems in Syria should continue. So therefore, in addition to stop the things in Gaza, we need to put also pressure on Israel to stop what they are trying to do in Syria. What they are trying to do in Syria is, as I described during my answer to first question, Israel would like to see divided, fragmented, weak neighbors. So they don't want to see, countries that are doing good economically or politically and otherwise. So they see this concept as a threat to Israel. So all the countries who are neighbor to Israel should be economically weak, politically divided, or But this is exactly what has to change with the Israeli politics. I think the future Israeli political leaders, they have to develop a new understanding where the future of Israel and Arabs in the region should be based on mutual prosperity, dignity, safety, and security. Someone else's instability and insecurity cannot be your prosperity and security. Right. This equation is wrong. We need to change this. Right. Because it might look that it is working for you for a short period of time, but you may never know that maybe you are paving a future danger, a big strategic danger for yourself. This is our perspective.
Yeah, yeah. Now, let me turn to some good news. I mean, there's not much. So let me turn to a few, one piece of good news that I think has happened recently, and that is the agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Trump has not been exactly a successful mediator in Ukraine or in Gaza or anywhere else, but, I mean, you know, if we are honest with ourselves, there is a Trump corridor now, right? And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about, again, what are the implications of this agreement as far as Turkish-Armenian relations are concerned?
I think this is something that we really wanted to see for a long time. Right. Because we are true believers of regional stability and regional ownership of the problems and supporters of the regional cooperation. And South Caucasus, for the last 30 years, because of the Armenian occupation of the Azerbaijani land, was hosting a huge frozen conflict. And then we saw the crisis in Georgia, occupation from Russia, and that added another area of problem in our region. So, you know, after the liberation of occupied places in Karabakh, and thanks to Armenian leadership, you know, we really should appreciate Prime Minister Pashinyan and his political line. You know, he really took a historical risk in seeking peace and deal with Azerbaijan. And thanks to Azerbaijani leadership, to President Aliyev and his friends, they, although came out of a liberation war, you know, very recently, and they say we are ready to forget everything. I think the both leadership deserves every kind of appreciation for their work for peace. And Mr. Trump, he really cemented a historical understanding and agreement in Washington, D.C. There are, you know, just for the audience who don't know the exact details, in Washington, D.C., the sides, they put their initials. It was not a final signature. I think we are waiting for the final signature as early as, hopefully, first half of the next year, hopefully. And I think Prime Minister Pashinyan is trying to do his best. And one of the outstanding issues outside of the agreed agreement was the corridor, Zengezur corridor. You know, that is very much essential for Azerbaijan to connect the separated, the Azeri land, which is called Nakhchivan, to connect to Azerbaijan mainland without interruption. That is very much essential. So that has been discussed between the sides, and there is still a discussion going on. And we are, as Türkiye, ready to immediately normalize everything with Armenia soon after, you know, they put their signature on the agreement. Okay,
so there is, just to clarify, so you are ready to fully normalize relations with Armenia, opening the border, peace, love, and happiness. The minute in which the agreement is not just initialed, but
Yes.
Got it.
I mean, as soon as there is a permanent peace sealed between Azerbaijan and Armenia, we'll immediately join next minute.
Fantastic.
Second, because this is what we are pushing. We don't want to see frozen conflict. This is why we are, seeing this condition as important one. Hopefully, if things go like this, in the very near future, we'll see that happy end.
Absolutely, absolutely. And let me move further to the north now. And of course, I can't not talk about Ukraine, right? And here we have Türkiye's role being really rather fundamental, I think, in two respects. The first you already talked about. I mean, it is clear, and I think, as you rightly say, at some point, right, there will have to be something. And that something can only be diplomacy, right? That moment is not now, it seems. Tragically, I think it is fairly clear that President Putin has no intention of ending this war. And so the war goes on. And so far, President Trump has not been particularly willing to exert any pressure in order to change, in a sense, the cost-benefit calculus. Anyway, so the war goes on. The war goes on, and Europeans that are, and of course here I include, of course, Turkey in Europeans, are in a situation in which they have to grapple with a situation in which the war goes on and the United States is, in the best of circumstances, stepping to one side, and in the worst of circumstances, siding with the wrong side. And so we have a dynamic which, for lack of a better term, we call coalition of the willing. And this has, of course, revolved a lot around this issue of, reassurance force. But in a sense, this is all a hypothetical, right? Because the reassurance force is premised on the assumption that there's going to be a ceasefire. And, of course, there's not going to be a ceasefire, certainly not in the short term. But the coalition of the willing, I think, has a deeper meaning. And perhaps it hasn't been, it's still a little bit intangible. But I think it really speaks of, at least the way I see it, and I'd love your reaction given that Türkiye is part of it, really the kernel, the core of a European security architecture of the future. And so I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit of a sense of how you interpret it, not only in terms of what it's supposed to be doing now, but perhaps especially what it might be doing and the role it might assume in future.
Well, thank you, Natalia. I mean, you are very clear and to the point in your diagnosis of the problems that and plus you have the luxury of,
saying what I want.
Yeah. and that puts me in a very disadvantaged position, still next to you. But as serving foreign minister, I'll try to do my best without causing any diplomatic crisis, but at the same time trying to
You're in a safe space here.
Your question. Well, you're right in your analysis, but if you ask me, someone who has hosted 3 rounds of talks between the Ukrainians and the Russians, of course, because of professional roles, I cannot disclose all the details, but my impression is that I think both sides have come some way forward to sort out the problems. Because, starting from the humanitarian items, exchange of prisoners and the wounded, the sick, and everything else, and some children who are lost. To address those issues, they have both sides shown will, and that will then later on turn into action in the field. And in due course, they have discussed other matters. And plus, what happened in Alaska and later on, subsequently in Washington, D.C., Mr. Trump first had discussion with Mr. Putin, then he had a discussion with Mr. Zelensky and the European leaders who are, active side of the war. I think it has become very much clear there is only one major outstanding issue at the moment, is that I think, the position of Donetsk now, and how to address this issue. If we really would like to have a genuine ceasefire, I think both sides have their respective positions on Donetsk, and I don't want to reiterate their positions here. But this is the only issue now, and I hope our American friends and the other friends, including us, we can become very much creative in offering both sides some acceptable solutions. For the first time, it has become very clear that a possible ceasefire, even a long-term truce, is within our grasp. But it needs a big effort, especially from the Americans. It needs big effort. I think Steve Witkoff is still working behind the scenes, and he's engaging talks with both sides now. I hope they can succeed. Otherwise, as you have said, there are other. Starting from Mr. Trump, he changed the American policy and position on the Ukrainian war. Instead of a leading power in the war, he adopted a policy of staying neutral. So that left European countries with the problem of leadership. Who is going to lead the charge, and who is going to be the enabler, and who is going to be the ultimate security guarantor if worse come to worse, worst case scenario. So for the time being, the war is confined within the Ukrainian territory, and this is what is making actually possible the war to go this long, because there is no escalation at the moment, but there is always a risk of escalation. What happened a couple of days ago over the skies of Poland, right, and subsequent discussions at NATO circles, I think it is once again reminding us that there is an escalation of war geographically. The war has been kept not escalated on two fronts. One is geographically, the other one is methodologically, not using the nuclear weapons. Conventional weapons, all sorts, only used in a specific area of territory. And then we saw the Russian territory has become a part of the war zone as a result of the Ukrainian attacks. And still, this was the biggest concern that we had right from the beginning, because if there is an escalation in the region, which could, as long as we have this big war, that would bring the European countries into the picture in a different shape. So I know that European countries are preparing themselves for every kind of scenario, but European security architecture has been based mainly on American capabilities and American military leadership. In the absence of such a thing, what will happen? So this is the question that I think that is being now discussed. And the good thing is, under the leadership of President Erdogan, Türkiye is ready to engage these discussions, and in a very constructive and positive ways. In the meantime, we think that a peace is possible through diplomacy, but we need to have a little bit more effort from both sides. We need to make a distinction between, is the war taking place between Ukraine and Russia, or between Europe and Russia? There are some overlapping areas. Right. There are some gray areas, but there are some clear areas too. I think, so before coming here, we had a discussion. I don't want to go back to discussion on record. So we need some clear leadership, some clear vision, and direction.
Yeah. Let me ask you a last question, and then, if I may, I'll take 3 questions from the floor all together, so think about it while I ask my last question to you, Hakan. So enlargement has been revived by the enlargement policy, has been revived by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. All of a sudden, the strategic, the security rationale of enlargement is back on the table. Now, this revival, so far, does not seem to have affected the EU-Turkey relationship. And so my heart keeps on bleeding, because this has been the very first thing that I started working on in 1998-99. And here we are still talking about it. But what you were just saying a second ago about the coalition of the willing, I'm just wondering if you sense that there is a movement on the European side. You know, earlier when you were giving your introductory speech, you talked about the fact that without Türkiye, Europe will not have, the EU will not have strategic depth, and I totally agree with you. Do you feel that as a result of what you were just saying a moment ago, there is this beginning of a sense, or more of a sense in Europe, that this is actually the case, and Ukraine is the most concrete manifestation of it?
I feel it, you know, when I discuss with my European colleagues on the domain of strategic relations and strategy, forming alliances, a better future for our region, you know, they believe that this is necessary. But when it goes back to the daily politics in their capitals, because of populist policies,
right.
You know, the strategic issues has been taken hostage by this reality. So if you remember, you know, in 2007-8, you know, there was a big discussion where Turkey was on a way to EU membership, and that time when Sarkozy, you know, Chirac and Schroeder, both strong leaders, you know, they put a big will, and they were visionaries behind the Turkey's membership in EU, you know, provided that the conditions are met. But after them, the new leadership closed the chapters, frozen everything. So because on the basis of identity politics, they said, look, I mean, if Turkey had been a part of EU, we could have seen a rise of far right in Europe. So it is no good for European capitals and politics. What happened was, I mean, Turkey had not been a member of EU now, and we have seen a rise of far right. So our exclusion, in other words, didn't work.
Right.
And it cost us and Europe loss of huge time, and we could have created our own center of gravity in our own region. We could have been less dependent on, on both sides of the globe. But we lost that time. And plus, EU, should have struggled to become a multi-civilizational entity, because now the European Union has managed to become a supra-civilizational entity under American protection umbrella, but failed to become a supra-civilizational entity.
Totally.
This is exactly what our world has needed, because a supra-civilizational entity, really leading the world on virtues, on tangible, deliverable services, goods, and for people. And I think this is what our world needed, and this could have been a good answer to the problems of our political debate today. Yeah. Sometimes in political history, as you know, Natalie, no matter how that political, philosophical discussions you have, but best practice most of the time is the best tool to convince the people.
Totally.
And we could have had this best practice. And, but it is not still too late. As long as there are people like us who are thinking like this, it is doable, but we are losing too much time.
Yeah. So let me ask 3 questions. Please introduce yourselves. 1, 2, and there at the back, 3. Yeah. Keep it very brief, please. And if you don't mind, I'll get them all together so then you can answer all 3.
Vesel Mehmedi, ambassador of North Macedonia here in Italy. We are honored to have Mr. Hakan Fidan here. Not only that we are honored, but your institute is honored, and it demonstrates once again that that's why you are celebrating 60th anniversary. I will try to be brief, and my question is coming from introductory remarks by the minister when he illustrated a simple example in order to illustrate the relations between Italy and Turkey, and he talked about coffee. Now, someone might think that this is just a simple example in order to illustrate these relations, but for me, as a psychologist and working for more than 20 years on intractable conflicts, for me, in this example of coffee, is an important attractive force in order to have these relations that Minister talked about. So, coming from this example, I want to ask Minister Hakan Fidan whether it is possible today, in all these examples that you illustrated of the problems all around the world, Middle East, Russia, Ukraine, EU enlargement. So here we have three problems. Is it possible, Turkey or all of us, to introduce an attractive force, like a coffee, being powerful enough to attract all the forces, all the actors that you mentioned for 1 hour by now, in order all of us to be attracted by this force?
What's the new coffee?
And yeah, what's the new coffee? Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next to you.
Sayın Bakanım, hoş geldiniz. Semih Topal from Lewis University. Turkey is now in a new peace process with the terrorist entity PKK, but at the same time the YPG in Syria, which is closely linked to the PKK, is becoming a stronger and remains a serious security concern in our borders. If the Syrian government decides to treat all the YPG members as a legitimate actor in Syria, what will Turkey's response will be? And in this context, how does Turkey plan to continue its struggle against the PKK and YPG terrorism? Teşekkürler.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I saw a hand 2 or 3 rows. Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
Maarten van Aalderen, a journalist from the Dutch daily newspaper, The Telegraaf, the Netherlands. You said very reasonable things about mutual security, Israel and Palestine, the solution of the two states. That would be the best, of course. We'll agree about that. But what I never understood is why Turkey never condemned the terrorist attack of Hamas on 7 October 2023 against Israel. Why didn't you take distance from that and said that's a terrorist attack, Kabul admirals? Why didn't you say that? Thank you.
Thank you. So 7th of October, PKK, YPG, and the new coffee. There you go.
Well, thank you. Starting from the last one, I don't know if you had paid attention. The first day, 7th of October, we condemned the attack. Officially, my ministry, from our spokesperson is here, we condemn the attack. Because it's about killing civilian people. We always, whoever does it, for whatever reason that they do it, we condemn it. No question about that. Moving back to other questions, the second one about YPG. We have our specific diagnosis of what's happening in Syria, and we are closely following, and we are very clear and transparent on what we really would like to see to satisfy our security needs regarding the position of YPG. And now we think that if they can make their agreement with the government in Damascus, it would be good, because what they had agreed on 10th of March this year, I think although we don't 100% are happy, we are not happy 100% about the articles of the agreement, but in general, we think that it is good if it is honored by both sides. But now we see that YPG is holding back. They are dragging their feet not to go ahead with the agreed agreement with the Damascus government. I think they are now hoping any of possible opportunities for themselves by judging from the crisis that's caused by Israel in Syria. If they see a new wave of instability emerges in Syria, they think that they can do better for their future. But nevertheless, there is one aspect that we are very much consistent and insistent on that, about the threat against Turkey. Now, we see that there are a big number of people who are from Turkey, Iraq, and Iran, who are members of PKK and working with YPG at the moment. They are not there to work for Syria. They are there to fight against us. So as long as that element of threat is there and certain capabilities are there, we don't think that we can be happy about what's going on, and we have to take necessary measures. But as I said, we are now given a chance to both sides in Damascus and YPG coming together to solve their problem while contributing to stability in Syria in general, also addressing our security concerns. We are using every bit of tools to reach this end peacefully, but again, it is our national security at question here, so if worse comes worse, there might be no other alternative. And on new coffee. I don't know if we can replace coffee, but I think the new coffee can be, for us, a new idea, a new idea that I've been trying to portray here. What we need is an answer to the crisis of our world today. And that answer can only be given through our collective practice here, the different civilizations who are living in the same geography, coming together and forming an alliance, a unity based on the same values, not same beliefs, but same values, same rules. That could have been the best answer to our world. And it is still doable, and it's possible. But unfortunately, if you ask me, as a result of my discussions with current European leadership and politicians, not many of them really willing to come up with some creative ideas. They are trying to save what is left to them now.
Totally right. Totally right.
Even for the sake of discussion, we don't see visionary discussions because the current politics, the political environment, certainly, probably not allowing them to have this discussion.
Well, Minister Fidan, this has been absolutely delightful. You may not be as free as a think tanker, but you have really given us an incredible depth and incredible breadth. I think this has really made for an absolutely incredible and enriching afternoon for us all. Thank you so much
thank you, Natalie.
for being with us.